The dog does not steal the medical bag because he is hungry. He steals it because somewhere beyond the tree line, a life is running out of time. Rain drifts across the Blue Ridge Mountains in thin gray sheets, soft enough to look harmless, cold enough to settle inside a man's bones. At a lonely gas station outside Boone, North Carolina, Staff Sergeant Caleb Brooks stands beneath the rusted metal awning beside his mud-streaked pickup, waiting for the fuel pump to finish its slow mechanical clicking. He is 36, tall and broad-shouldered, a white United States Marine with sandy brown hair cut close at the sides and a faint scar resting along his right jaw. His field jacket is damp at the shoulders. His boots carry the red clay of the mountain road. On the pavement beside him sits a faded red medical bag, its canvas worn pale at the corners, its white cross cracked from years of sun, salt, and hard use. Caleb has carried it through hurricanes, roadside accidents, and volunteer search missions. He trusts the bag because everything inside has a purpose. Gauze stops bleeding. Blankets hold warmth. Medicine buys time. In Caleb's experience, time is often the only miracle people are given. The station is nearly empty. A cashier watches an old game show behind the glass. A delivery driver drinks coffee near the ice machine. Somewhere beneath the awning, rainwater taps against a loose gutter with the patient rhythm of a clock. Then the German shepherd appears. He steps from behind a row of wet pine trees without a sound. He is lean, dark along the back, sable at the legs, with rain flattening his coat against his ribs. One ear stands straight. The other bears a small tear near the tip. No collar circles his neck. No tag catches the light. At first glance, he looks like one more stray pushed out of the hills by bad weather and hunger. The delivery driver notices him and tears open a package of beef jerky. "Come here, boy," he calls, holding out a strip. The shepherd looks at the food. His amber eyes move once toward the man's hand, then away. He does not approach. The cashier brings out a paper bowl of water and places it near the door. The dog ignores that too. Caleb watches him more carefully now. Hunger has a certain shape. It lowers the head. It pulls the eyes toward anything edible. This dog is thin, but he is not searching for food. He is searching for something else. His gaze moves across the pumps, the parked cars, the doorway, and finally settles on Caleb's medical bag. The shepherd becomes still. Not frightened. Not uncertain. Focused. Caleb recognizes that stillness. He has seen it in working dogs before a command, in Marines before a difficult decision, in wounded men listening for a helicopter beyond the horizon. "Easy, pal," Caleb says. His voice is low, steady, carrying no threat. The dog takes one step forward. Rainwater darkens the concrete between them. Caleb crouches, keeping his hands where the animal can see them. "You lost." The shepherd does not look at Caleb's face. His eyes remain fixed on the white cross. The fuel pump clicks off behind them. Caleb turns his head for less than a second. That is all the dog needs. He lunges forward, grips the medical bag by its canvas handle, and pulls it across the wet pavement. "Hey!" Caleb reaches out, but the shepherd is already moving. The bag bumps against his front legs as he runs past the pumps and toward the road. The delivery driver laughs in disbelief. That dog just robbed a Marine. Caleb does not laugh. The shepherd could have taken the jerky. He could have tipped over the water. He could have vanished the moment anyone noticed him. Instead, he chose the heaviest object near Caleb's truck, a bag that smells of antiseptic, canvas, and old rain. "Drop it," Caleb calls. The dog reaches the edge of the parking lot and stops. He turns. The medical bag hangs from his jaws, pulling his head slightly to one side. His chest rises and falls quickly, but his eyes remain clear. He looks directly at Caleb. Then he glances toward the forest. Back to Caleb. Toward the forest again. It is not the wild panic of a cornered animal. It is a message. Caleb takes one slow step closer. The dog waits. "You want me to follow you?" he murmurs. At the sound of his voice, the shepherd lowers the bag for half a heartbeat, releases one sharp breath, then grips it again and trots across the road. A horn sounds from somewhere beyond the rain. Caleb follows to the shoulder, watching as the dog slips between two dripping pines. 10 yards into the woods, the shepherd stops again. He stands beneath the dark branches with the red bag at his feet, his silhouette narrow and motionless against the mist. He is checking, making sure the man is still there. Caleb feels something old and instinctive tighten in his chest. This is not theft. A thief runs away from pursuit. This dog is waiting for it. Caleb leaves the fuel nozzle hanging beside the pump, reaches into his truck for a flashlight, and steps off the pavement. Red clay gives beneath his boots. The air beyond the road smells of wet bark, cold stone, and fallen leaves. All right, he says softly. Show me. The shepherd lifts the medical bag and turns deeper into the trees. He moves quickly, but never so quickly that Caleb loses sight of him. Every 30 or 40 feet, he pauses beneath the rain, looks back, and waits. The gas station lights fade behind them until only a weak yellow glow remains between the branches. Ahead, the mountain forest grows darker, quieter, and strangely still. Caleb cannot yet know where the dog is taking him. He only knows the animal rejected food, ignored water, and chose the one thing designed to keep someone alive. Somewhere in the wet silence, a branch cracks. The shepherd freezes, listening. Then he looks back at Caleb with an urgency no stray should know how to express. Caleb tightens his grip on the flashlight and follows, because the dog is not escaping into the storm. He is leading a rescue toward it. The forest closes around Caleb Brooks one wet branch at a time. Behind him, the last glow from the gas station disappears through the rain, swallowed by pine trunks and mountain fog. Ahead, the German shepherd moves with the red medical bag clenched carefully between his teeth, never dragging it long enough to damage what is inside. Caleb notices that detail. The dog understands the bag matters. He also understands pace. He runs 20 yards, stops beneath a leaning oak, and waits until Caleb catches up before moving again. You have done this before, Caleb says, though the only answer is the soft clink of metal buckles against damp canvas. The trail narrows beside a shallow creek swollen by the storm. Water rushes over smooth stones, dark and quick beneath the trees. The shepherd does not take the shortest route across. He follows the bank until he reaches a fallen log wide enough to support a man, then sets down the bag, steps onto the trunk, and looks back. Caleb studies him through the rain. Most strays survive by impulse. This one plans. He tests the log with one boot, crosses carefully, then catches the medical bag when the dog nudges it toward him from the other side. For a moment, the shepherd releases the handle and allows Caleb to carry it. Then, as soon as they reach solid ground, he takes it back. The gesture is small, almost formal. Caleb feels an old memory stir. 8 years earlier, in a place where the air smelled of dust, diesel, and sun-heated stone, another set of watchful eyes had studied him with that same patience. Those eyes had belonged to Aaron Briggs, a United States Navy corpsman assigned to Caleb's Marine unit overseas. Aaron had been a quiet man from Ohio who carried extra bandages, peppermint candy, and a pocket Bible worn soft at the edges. He never spoke loudly, even when everyone else did. He believed panic wasted air. Breathe first, he would tell the younger Marines. Then decide what matters. Caleb had laughed at the phrase the first time he heard it. Later, it became the sentence that kept him alive. During Caleb's final deployment, a roadside blast disabled their vehicle far from the nearest safe position. There had been smoke, confusion, and the ringing silence that follows a sound too large for the mind to hold. Caleb remembered trying to stand and discovering that his body would not listen. He remembered Aaron kneeling beside him, calm as Sunday morning, placing one hand against Caleb's shoulder. "Look at me, Brooksy," Aaron had said. "Breathe first." Aaron stayed when he could have moved to safety. He kept Caleb awake until help arrived. He gave away his own water. He told a terrible joke about hospital food. Caleb survived. Aaron came home 6 months later carrying wounds no medical chart could fully describe. At first, they called each other every week. Then every month. Aaron's voice grew quieter. He stopped answering invitations. One winter morning, his number was disconnected. Caleb contacted old friends, searched veteran networks, and mailed letters to the last address he had. Every envelope came back unopened. Eventually, life gave him excuses to stop looking. Training, transfers, storm relief, long nights when duty felt easier than memory. Yet the truth remained beneath every excuse. Aaron had once refused to leave Caleb alone, and Caleb had allowed distance to do what danger could not. That guilt lives inside the red medical bag. Beneath the gauze and emergency blanket, tucked into a narrow inner pocket, rests half of a broken identification tag. Aaron had split it during their last night overseas and pressed one piece into Caleb's palm. "So you remember who taught you to pack a proper kit?" he had joked. Caleb had promised to return it when they were both old men sitting on a porch. He never got the chance. A sharp bark pulls him back to the mountain. The shepherd stands 40 feet ahead at a fork in the trail, body rigid, eyes fixed on Caleb. The left path slopes downward into thick brush. The right climbs toward a ridge lost in fog. Caleb raises his hand without thinking, palm forward, fingers closed, the silent signal his unit once used to command a working dog to wait. The shepherd freezes instantly, not hesitates, obeys. Caleb lowers his hand. "Forward," he says. The dog takes the right path. Caleb remains still for one heartbeat, rain running from his hair to his jaw. No untrained stray responds like that. No hungry animal chooses a medical bag, checks the condition of a bridge, adjusts his pace to a human, and waits for a field signal spoken without words. The shepherd was trained. More than that, he was trained by someone who understood military commands. Caleb follows faster now. The trail rises sharply, curling around gray boulders slick with moss. His boots sink into mud. The dog never loses balance. At the top of the ridge, he stops beside a weathered wooden post half hidden by vines. Something has been carved into it, but rain and time have softened the letters. Caleb wipes away the moss with his sleeve. A small white cross appears beneath the grime, almost identical to the faded symbol on his bag. Beyond the post, the forest opens into a narrow clearing. At its far edge stands an abandoned chapel with a sagging roof and boarded windows, silent beneath the mountain rain. The shepherd sets the medical bag on the ground. His chest heaves. For the first time, Caleb sees exhaustion break through the dog's discipline. Still, the animal does not lie down. He turns toward the chapel, then looks back at Caleb as if asking whether the man is finally ready to understand. Caleb picks up the bag and feels the hidden piece of metal shift inside its pocket. Somewhere beyond those dark boards, something waits. Something the dog crossed miles of cold forest to reach. Caleb steps into the clearing, carrying the bag that once held a promise he had failed to keep, while the shepherd walks beside him like a guide sent to collect an old debt. The chapel door hangs crooked beneath a shallow porch, its white paint peeled away by years of mountain rain. Caleb Brooks climbs the 3 wooden steps with the medical bag in his left hand and the flashlight in his right. The German shepherd reaches the door first, presses his nose against the narrow opening, and becomes perfectly still. His ears turn forward. His breathing slows. Caleb watches the change pass through him. Outside, the dog had moved with urgency. Here, he moves with discipline. "Wait," Caleb says softly. The shepherd does not cross the threshold. Caleb raises 2 fingers, points toward the doorway, then lowers his hand. The dog enters at once. No hesitation. No confusion. He sweeps the room from left to right, nose low, paws quiet against the warped floorboards. Caleb follows, and the smell of wetwood closes around him. Dust floats through the flashlight beam. Rows of narrow pews sit beneath a roof stained dark by old leaks. A wooden cross remains fixed above the altar, plain and weathered, while rain taps gently through a broken pane near the rear wall. The building feels abandoned, but not empty. Caleb senses it. Before he finds proof, a metal cup rests beside one pew. A folded blanket lies near the altar. Both are old, yet neither carries enough dust to have been untouched for years. Someone has been here recently. The shepherd moves toward the cup, smells it once, then turns away. He does not search randomly. He knows the room. Caleb steps between the pews and notices faint marks in the dust, for paw prints crossing toward the far corner. Beside them are shallow lines made by Summit. Caleb closes his hand around the iron ring and pulls. The hidden door resists at first, swollen by years of rain and mountain cold, then rises with a long wooden groan that rolls through the chapel like a voice waking from sleep. Beneath it, a narrow stairway descends into darkness. The air that reaches him smells of damp earth, old stone, and something faintly medicinal. The German shepherd is on his feet before the door is fully open. He presses forward, but Caleb raises one hand. "Stay." The dog freezes at the edge, every muscle drawn tight. Caleb shines the flashlight downward. 7 wooden steps disappear into a low cellar. Mud stains the center of each one. Fresh paw prints travel both directions, but the human marks beneath them are older and uneven, as though someone descended with strength and later tried to climb back without it. "Hello," Caleb calls. His voice returns from the stone walls, softer and farther away. For several seconds, there is only rain tapping the chapel roof. Then the answer comes. 3 knocks. Weak. Deliberate. Caleb lowers the medical bag through the opening and sets it on the first step. The shepherd makes a quiet sound behind him, almost a breath shaped into a plea. "I know," Caleb says. "I hear him." He tests the stairs one at a time. The wood creaks, but holds. At the bottom, the beam of his flashlight reveals a storm cellar no more than 12 feet wide and 20 feet long. Shelves line one wall, filled with empty jars, rusted tools, and folded blankets sealed inside plastic bins. The far side has collapsed inward, leaving a mound of red clay and broken stone beneath exposed roots. A battery radio lies near the debris with its back panel removed. Beside it sits an empty water bottle and a small notebook, its pages curled from moisture. Caleb steps farther in. The temperature is several degrees colder than the chapel above. His breath clouds in front of him. "My name is Caleb Brooks. I am a United States Marine. I have medical supplies. Can you speak?" Something shifts beyond the mound. Not much, just enough for a boot to scrape softly against stone. Caleb angles the light through a narrow opening between 2 fallen beams. A man lies in the protected space beyond them, partly wrapped in a silver emergency blanket. His beard has grown unevenly, and his clothes are covered with dust, but Caleb can see the steady rise and fall of his chest. Alive. Barely alert, but alive. The man lifts one hand a few inches and lets it fall. Caleb feels his training settle over him, quiet and familiar. Breathe first, then decide what matters. He kneels beside the opening and studies the fallen beams. They are heavy, but not fully pinned. A safe passage remains near the left wall, wide enough for Caleb to crawl through if he removes 2 loose stones. He returns to the stairs and looks up. The shepherd is still waiting exactly where Caleb left him, front paws inches from the open door. "Bring it," Caleb says, pointing to the medical bag. The dog grips the handle and descends carefully. He does not rush. He places each paw near the edge of the steps, balancing the weight as if he has carried the bag through this darkness before. At the bottom, he passes Caleb without waiting for another command and moves directly toward the trapped man. Caleb almost calls him back. Then he sees the dog lower his head beside the opening, his body suddenly gentle, his tail resting against the earth. The man's fingers move. They find the shepherd's muzzle and remain there. The dog closes his eyes. Not relief. Not yet. Recognition. Caleb removes the loose stones and crawls through the gap with the medical bag pushed ahead of him. The space beyond is small but stable, protected by an old support beam that has caught most of the fallen earth. He sets the flashlight upright and opens the bag. "I am going to check you now," he says. "You are safe. Help is coming." The man's eyes open slightly. They are pale beneath exhaustion, searching Caleb's face without fully seeing it. Caleb checks his breathing, pulse, and temperature. The man is dehydrated and cold, but there are no signs that require Caleb to move him immediately. That is good. Moving too quickly in a damaged cellar could create new danger. Caleb wraps another emergency blanket around his shoulders and offers a small amount of water. Slowly, he says, "Just one sip." The man obeys. The shepherd remains beside him, watching Caleb's hands with fierce attention. On the floor near the radio, Caleb notices the notebook. He opens it carefully. The first pages contain dates, weather notes, and short lists of supplies. The later entries are shakier. Day 4. Radio failed. Day 5. Scout found the road. Day 6. Sent Scout again. Caleb looks toward the shepherd. "Scout," he says. The dog's ears rise. His name. Caleb turns another page. The final line is written in pencil so faintly he must bring the light closer. "Find the man with the red bag." Caleb stares at the words, then at Scout. The instruction is too specific to be chance. The man beside him moves again. His right hand is closed around something resting against his chest. A thin metal chain slips between his fingers. Caleb reaches gently toward it, but the man tightens his grip, guarding the object even in weakness. Scout touches his nose to the man's wrist. The fingers slowly open. Inside his palm lies a broken piece of military identification metal, worn smooth at one edge. Caleb does not need to remove the matching half from his bag to know its shape. He has carried that shape for 8 years. Caleb reaches into the narrow pocket of the medical bag and closes his fingers around the piece of metal he has carried for 8 years. It feels colder than the cellar, colder than the rain seeping through the mountain above them. He draws it into the flashlight beam and places it beside the fragment resting in the injured man's palm. The two broken edges fit together perfectly. A single stamped name stretches across the restored tag. Caleb Brooks. The sound of water dripping from the old beams seems to fade. Caleb stares at the metal while memory rises around him with the scent of dust, engine fuel, and peppermint candy. Aaron Briggs had broken the tag on their final evening overseas. He had kept one half and given the other back to Caleb with a tired smile. "We return these when we are both too old to remember why we split them," he had said. Caleb had promised. Then distance had arrived quietly. Telephone calls became messages. Messages became unanswered letters. One day, Aaron disappeared from every address Caleb knew. Caleb searched until duty gave him places to hide from guilt, and then he told himself that some men simply wished to be left alone. Now the missing half rests in the hand of a stranger beneath an abandoned chapel. Except the man is not a stranger. Caleb lifts the flashlight and studies the tired face before him. The beard is grayer. The cheeks are thinner. Years have gathered around the eyes. But the small curved scar near the left eyebrow remains exactly where Caleb remembers it. "Aaron," he says. The name barely leaves his throat. Scout raises his head. The man's eyelids move, then slowly open. His gaze wanders across the dirt wall, the emergency blanket, and the red medical bag before settling on Caleb's face. For a moment, there is no recognition, only exhaustion. Caleb leans closer. "Aaron Briggs, it is Caleb. You are not alone." The man watches him through the dim light. Something gentle shifts in his expression. His lips part. "Brooksy." The old nickname is weak, but unmistakable. Caleb bows his head as relief and regret meet somewhere behind his ribs. He takes Aaron's hand carefully, holding it between both of his own. "I should have found you sooner." Aaron's fingers move faintly around his. "You found me now." Caleb looks toward Scout. "He found both of us." At the sound of his name, Scout crawls closer and rests his muzzle beside Aaron's shoulder. Aaron touches the torn tip of the shepherd's ear with the tenderness of someone returning to the only home he trusts. "Good boy," he whispers. Scout's eyes close for 1 second, then open again. His work is not finished. Caleb checks Aaron's pulse, breathing, and temperature. He is cold and badly dehydrated, but alert enough to follow instructions. Caleb wraps another silver blanket around him and raises a bottle to his lips. "One small sip," he says. "Then wait." Aaron obeys without argument. Even after all these years, Caleb hears the corpseman in the way Aaron controls his breathing. Slow, measured, saving strength. Caleb removes the emergency radio from the bag and extends the antenna. Static fills the narrow chamber. He changes channels and presses the transmit button. "This is Staff Sergeant Caleb Brooks, United States Marine Corps. I have located one adult male inside the storm cellar beneath an abandoned chapel east of Blue Ridge Highway. He is conscious, hypothermic, and dehydrated. The structure has partially collapsed. We require medical rescue and structural support." Only static answers. Caleb tries again, raising the radio toward the opening in the ceiling. "Watauga County Dispatch, do you copy?" A broken voice finally reaches him through the noise. "Sergeant Brooks, we copy part of your transmission. Search and rescue is moving toward your location. Mark the building if possible." "Understood," Caleb replies. "We will remain in place." He lowers the radio and notices Aaron watching the joined identification tag. "You kept it," Caleb says. Aaron gives a tired nod. Some promises deserve more time. The words carry no blame. That makes Caleb feel their weight more deeply. Scout shifts beside them. His hind leg trembles again, and this time the movement does not escape Caleb. Mud covers the dog's paws. Burrs cling beneath his chest. Along his right side, a narrow patch of fur is pressed flat and darker than the rest. Caleb reaches toward it, but Scout gently moves away and returns his attention to Aaron. "How long has he been searching?" Caleb asks. Aaron glances toward the damp notebook near the broken radio. "For days. He went out every morning, came back every night, once with crackers, once with a work glove. Nobody followed him. His eyes moved toward the white cross on Caleb's bag. Today he found what he understood. Caleb remembers the untouched food at the gas station and the way Scout had stared at the medical symbol. The dog had not chosen Caleb because of luck. He had recognized equipment, discipline, and perhaps the scent of someone his handler once trusted. Above them, the old chapel creaks in the wind. Fine dirt falls from a beam. Scout rises immediately and places himself between Aaron and the damaged wall. His legs shake, but he stands. Caleb watches him and understands the truth no tag could stamp into metal. Scout is not guarding a patient. He is guarding his person. Far beyond the cellar, a siren sounds through the rain, faint at first, then steadily closer. Scout hears it before either man. His ears lift. He looks at Aaron, then Caleb, counting them in silence. Only after he knows they are both still there does he lower himself to the ground, his body curved protectively beside the man he refused to abandon. The siren grows louder until red light begins to pulse through the cracks in the chapel floor. Caleb raises the emergency radio and guides the rescue team toward the clearing, describing the leaning porch, the weathered cross, and the hidden cellar beneath the altar. Boots soon cross the boards above them. Voices call through the open hatch. Sheriff Megan Foster appears at the top of the stairs, rain shining on the shoulders of her jacket. Behind her stand 2 paramedics and a county rescue specialist carrying support braces. "Staff Sergeant Brooks?" she calls. "Down here," Caleb answers. "One patient, conscious but weak. The damaged wall needs to be secured before we move him." Megan studies the cellar with the calm attention of someone who understands that haste can become another danger. She sends one rescuer to brace the opening while the paramedics descend with a soft stretcher, warm fluids, and additional blankets. Scout rises as the first stranger approaches Aaron. His ears lift. His body moves between the medic and the injured man, not threatening, but certain. Caleb places one hand against the shepherd's shoulder. "Easy, Scout. They are here to help." The dog looks at him, then at Aaron. Aaron reaches from beneath the blanket and touches Scout behind the ear. "Stand down," he whispers. Scout steps aside immediately and sits close enough for his paw to rest against Aaron's boot. The command is simple, but every person in the cellar notices how quickly the dog obeys. Paramedic Rebecca Sloan kneels beside Aaron and begins her examination. Her voice remains low and reassuring as she checks his pulse, listens to his breathing, and prepares a warm intravenous solution. "You have been down here several days," she says. "We are going to move slowly." Aaron nods. His eyes drift toward Scout. "He kept me alive." Rebecca glances at the dog, then at the notebook near the broken radio. "He brought you supplies?" "Whatever he could carry." Aaron pauses to gather strength. He was trained to retrieve medicine, find exits, and locate people during panic episodes. After I left the service, crowds became difficult. Storms were worse. Scout learned the signs before I did. He could feel my breathing change before I noticed it. Caleb listens while holding the flashlight steady. Aaron's words fill the missing years piece by piece. Scout had come from a veteran assistance program in Tennessee. He was not a patrol dog and had never been trained to chase anyone. His work was quieter. He woke Aaron from nightmares, guided him away from crowded rooms, retrieved a medical pouch, and pressed his body against Aaron when memory pulled the ground from beneath him. 2 years earlier, Aaron and Scout had moved into a small cabin outside Boone, far from traffic and noise. Aaron repaired old buildings for local churches. The abandoned chapel had been his latest project. He came to inspect the storm cellar before the rain began, believing he would be inside for only an hour. Then the swollen earth shifted against the old foundation, trapping him behind fallen beams and blocking the stairs. His telephone had no signal. The radio failed on the second day. Scout could leave through a narrow drainage opening near the rear wall, but Aaron could not follow. "I sent him to the highway," Aaron says. He knew the command for help, but people saw a stray dog and kept driving. Caleb looks at the shepherd's torn ear and muddy coat. "He came back every time." "Every time," Aaron replies. "He would not stay away while I was still here." On the 4th morning, Aaron tore a page from the notebook and wrapped it around Scout's old fabric harness. The harness never returned. Somewhere in the forest it had caught on a branch and slipped free, leaving Scout without identification. Aaron then gave him one final command. Find medical. Scout knew the Red Cross from years of retrieving Aaron's home kit. He searched until he found Caleb's bag beneath the gas station awning. What looked like theft had been obedience carried across miles of rain. Rebecca finishes stabilizing Aaron and signals that he is ready to move. The rescue team braces the damaged beams and widens the safe passage. Caleb crawls beside the stretcher as they guide Aaron toward the stairs. Scout follows one careful step at a time, never taking his eyes from his person. When Aaron reaches the chapel floor, cold daylight enters through the broken windows, pale and gentle after the darkness below. Rain has softened to a mist. The paramedics carry him toward the waiting ambulance, but Scout stops beneath the doorway. His legs tremble. Caleb turns and sees the shepherd sway once, fighting to remain upright until Aaron is safely outside. Then Scout lowers himself to the floor, not from fear, but from a duty finally completed. Caleb kneels beside him and opens the red medical bag again. The first life has been found. Now the faithful guide needs someone to notice that he has been hurting too. Caleb kneels beside Scout as the last of the rescue team carries Aaron across the wet clearing. The shepherd's chest rises quickly beneath his dark, rain-soaked coat, but his amber eyes remain fixed on the ambulance doors. Even now, exhausted and trembling, he watches to make sure his person is not taken somewhere unsafe. You did your job, Caleb says, placing one hand gently against the dog's shoulder. Let us do ours. Scout tries to stand. His front legs brace against the chapel floor, but the strength leaves them almost at once. Caleb catches him before he slips and lowers him carefully onto a folded blanket. Beneath the mud and tangled pine needles, a narrow wound runs along the dog's right side, hidden beneath thick fur. It is not severe enough to explain everything. The deeper danger is cold, dehydration, and 4 days of movement without proper rest. Scout had spent everything he had on one command. Find help. Caleb opens the medical bag and removes clean cloth, water, and a thermal blanket. He works slowly, speaking in the same calm voice Aaron once used with frightened Marines. Breathe first, he murmurs. Then decide what matters. Scout's ears twitch at the phrase. Caleb pauses. Perhaps Aaron had said those same words during storms, nightmares, or long nights when the walls of a quiet cabin felt too close. Perhaps Scout had learned that sentence meant safety was near. Sheriff Megan Foster steps back into the chapel and crouches beside them. The ambulance crew is ready to leave, she says. They want to know whether the dog is coming. Scout lifts his head at the sound of the engine outside. He is coming, Caleb replies. There is an emergency veterinary clinic 12 miles from the county hospital. We can keep them on the same route. Megan nods and speaks into her radio. A second vehicle is requested. Caleb wraps the thermal blanket around Scout, leaving his head uncovered. The dog resists until Aaron's voice drifts weakly from outside. Scout. The shepherd becomes still. Caleb gathers him into his arms. Scout is lighter than a German shepherd of his size should be, all damp fur, lean muscle, and stubborn purpose. As Caleb carries him down the chapel steps, the rain finally begins to break. Gray clouds separate above the ridge, allowing a pale strip of evening light to fall across the clearing. Aaron lies secured on the stretcher near the ambulance, warm blankets pulled to his chest. When he sees Scout, fear passes across his tired face. Is he all right? He is exhausted, Caleb says, cold and dehydrated. There is a small injury along his side, but he is awake. Aaron reaches one hand toward him. Caleb steps closer until Scout can touch his nose to Aaron's fingers. The dog releases a long breath. His eyes soften for the first time since the gas station. I sent him away from me, Aaron whispers. He must have thought I abandoned him. Caleb shakes his head. No, he understood the mission. That is why he kept. Returning, Aaron looks at the red bag hanging from Caleb's shoulder. Mud stains the canvas. Teeth marks crease the handle. He found the right man. Caleb lowers his gaze. He found the man who owed you. Aaron's hand remains against Scout's muzzle. Dead is not the same as love, Brooksy. The words are quiet, but they reach a place Caleb has kept closed for years. You did not come into that cellar because you owed me. You came because a dog asked you to follow. The ambulance crew prepares to move. Caleb carries Scout toward the county rescue truck, but the shepherd turns his head and watches Aaron's stretcher. His body grows tense again as the distance widens. Caleb understands. Keep the vehicles together, he tells Megan. He needs to see the ambulance. Megan places the rescue truck directional. Morning arrives over Boone with a clean blue sky and sunlight resting on the wet roofs like a quiet blessing. Caleb wakes in a vinyl chair beside Scout's recovery kennel, his neck stiff and one hand still resting near the joint identification tag. The shepherd is already awake. His amber eyes follow every sound beyond the glass door, alert despite the bandage along his side and the clear fluid line attached near his front leg. Dr. Emily Carter enters carrying a bowl of warm food and a report folded beneath one arm. His temperature is normal, she says. He kept down water during the night. The wound is clean, and there is no serious damage beneath it. Caleb lets out a breath. When can he leave? Not until he decides to stop pretending he is stronger than he is. Dr. Carter places the bowl inside the kennel. Scout smells it, then looks toward the clinic entrance. He does not eat. Caleb understands before the doctor asks. He is waiting for Aaron. Dr. Carter studies the dog for a moment. Then perhaps Aaron should come to him. The county hospital sits less than a mile away, a brick building surrounded by maple trees washed bright by the storm. Aaron is stable, but weak enough that the nurses insist on a wheelchair. By late morning, Caleb walks beside him as a hospital orderly pushes him through the veterinary clinic doors. Aaron wears clean clothes, donated by the rescue team, and a gray blanket across his knees. His face still carries the pale exhaustion of the cellar, yet his eyes are clearer now. Scout hears the wheels before he sees them. His head rises. His ears stand forward. Then Aaron appears in the doorway. For one suspended second, neither moves. The clinic becomes silent around them. Aaron lifts one hand. Scout. The shepherd tries to stand too quickly. His legs shake, and Caleb reaches toward him, but Scout steadies himself. He steps from the kennel with careful dignity, crosses the small room, and presses his head against Aaron's chest. Aaron bends over him. Rap. 3 months later, autumn settles gently over Boone, North Carolina, turning the Blue Ridge Mountains copper, gold, and deep red beneath a clear October sky. The old chapel still stands in the forest, but county workers have sealed the damaged cellar and repaired the sagging porch. A new brass plaque rests beside the door, not to honor a battle or a famous name, but to remember the quiet courage that brought 2 lost men back into the light. Aaron Briggs visits once after his recovery. He does not go inside. He stands at the edge of the clearing with one hand resting on Scout's back, while Caleb Brooks waits beside him. The air smells of pine needles and cold earth. Sunlight passes through the branches in long golden bands. I thought that place would feel like a grave, Aaron says. Caleb studies the repaired white cross above the entrance. What does it feel like? Aaron looks down at Scout. A doorway. They leave without saying anything more. Some places do not need to be conquered. They only need to be survived. Aaron now lives in a small apartment near the County Veterans Center, less than 10 minutes from Caleb's house. His strength returns slowly. He walks with Scout every morning, first for half a mile, then 1 mile, then farther along the river trail when the weather is kind. Caleb joins them whenever he can. At first, their conversations remain careful, filled with ordinary things such as coffee, football, road repairs, and whether Scout has become too spoiled by the clinic staff. The past waits between them, but it no longer controls the room. One afternoon, Aaron asks Caleb why he still volunteers for emergency response missions. Caleb thinks about the question before answering. Because sometimes people need someone who will keep looking. Aaron nods. That sounds familiar. Soon, the 3 of them begin volunteering together at a local program for former service members. Aaron teaches basic first aid in a bright classroom overlooking the mountains. Caleb organizes outdoor support trips for veterans who have forgotten how peaceful the woods can feel. Scout lies near the doorway during every meeting, watching quietly. He seems to know who needs him before anyone speaks. When a nervous young veteran pauses outside the room, Scout rises and sits beside him. When an older woman begins breathing too quickly during a crowded gathering, he places his head beneath her hand and waits. He never demands trust. He simply remains close enough for trust to find him. The red medical bag stays with Caleb. Dr. Emily Carter offers to replace it with a newer model, one with stronger zippers and a reinforced handle. Caleb thanks her but refuses. The canvas is stained by mountain clay. One corner is permanently faded. Scout's teeth have left a row of deep marks across the handle. Caleb cleans the bag, but never repairs those marks. To him, they are no longer damage. They are a message written by a creature who had no other way to make the world listen. The restored identification tag hangs from an inside strap. Aaron insists that Caleb keep it. It has your name, he says. Caleb shakes his head. It carries both our promises. They compromise by placing it inside the bag, where it rests beside the supplies that once saved them. On the first cold morning of November, Caleb arrives at the Veterans Center before sunrise. Frost covers the grass. The windows glow softly against the dark. Inside, Aaron is arranging chairs while Scout sleeps beneath a framed photograph taken outside the veterinary clinic. In the photograph, Aaron is seated in his wheelchair, Caleb stands beside him, and Scout rests between them with one paw touching each man. Beneath the picture, a small wooden sign reads, "No one comes home alone." Caleb sets the medical bag on a table. Scout opens one eye, notices,